Well, there have been a lot of promises made. So how has President Trump kept his promises and pushed the MAGA mandate? Well, Steve Deace joins us here in studio, host of the Steve Deace Show. We love it when you're down here in Dallas. So a lot of optimism between the three of us. I don't know how I feel about this right now, but how is Trump actually getting this done, pushing his mandate forward and making the three of us smile all at the same time?
Well, you know, I like plans. I'm not big into details. Okay, I think you've got to be flexible within the plan. All right, but there does have to be a plan. Okay, and it's very clear from day one of this administration there was a plan, and it is very detailed. It is very orchestrated. What you're watching politically, frankly, is something we've never really seen. Because, you know, in the previous media eras of the presidency, we don't know what went on, you know, on day to day in the first 100 days. We didn't have media coverage like, you know, back then like we do now. And in the media era, presidents have always put a focus on the first 100 days. And that usually meant, you know, there was an issue of the week, you know, a talking point of the week. And we've never seen anything like what the Trump White House has done here, which is really an amphibious assault. It's a D-Day level assault. I mean, they have attacked the left in the spirit of the age on not just 5 beaches in northern France, but about 20 different issue fronts. And I mean, it's like every day there's another round of executive orders. And yeah, these are all going to end up in the courts. They're going to all have to be legislated out in many cases and fought out. But at the very least, what's happening here is he is framing the debate. And he's framing the debate around issues, and the debates, those issues debates are being framed in the framing that we would prefer. All right. And any good general, before he puts the troops into battle, is going to frame, he's going to shape the battlefield you can't, once the bullets start flying, things become organic. You can't plot it out in great detail, but you want to have your troops with a plan in the best position possible to succeed. And that's what the Trump White House has done. And I'll just tell you, like in my home state of Iowa, just to kind of give you guys one example, just how this is, you know, to use the era, Matt, when you and I were growing up, trickle down. We are having, you know, a civil war in Iowa right now. We're trying to become the first state in the union to just get rid of all the trainee madness, not just, you know, women's sports, but like out of the code. No gender identity, none of it. Get rid of all of it. And every person that the Des Moines Register polled before the last election, apparently, has lived at our legislature for the last 2 weeks. And we've just not, Iowans are nice Midwestern people. They're not used to seeing this kind of behavior. And several Republicans were getting squishy here in the decisive week. Well, we went to war with them, and you know what we did? We took Trump's comments about the Maine governor right to her face on Friday, and we held those up to those guys and said, "Hey, this is the leader of the party, man. You got to step up. And this is where our base is at right now. This is what they expect. This isn't going to cut it." Iowa nice, while they're down here in their 75 nose rings and their Joseph Technicolored hair, okay, like his dream coat, screaming and seething like it's a scene out of the New Testament. They're not going to take this lying down. Follow the leadership of the president. Do you know how often I have been able to do that in my career? And I wasn't like making it up. Okay, hoping they didn't Google search me to fact check it. This actually happened.
Yes.
Okay. Yes. And so that's an example of where we are. I mean, and leadership wins. And what you need to make in every era of human history, leadership wins. You just hope that it's good leadership.
This is, I mean, I know that we all really are in the same boat. And we say that we feel the same feelings here, which is just almost disbelief at all the things being done right, including laying out the argument beforehand, as you say. But all that's said, the amazing thing about what we're seeing is it hasn't even begun yet, right? I mean, they're not actually implementing a lot of policies yet in terms of agencies. They're just revving up with all the Avengers assembling, laying out the plans. Like they haven't even begun to implement all the plans. So looking at the future, as great as this has been, as historic as it has been, what are some of the big things that you want to see, that, you know, the bigger tasks that are going to take 1-2 years or more change when it comes to structural change?
The number one thing that I think needs to happen, and listen, I'll take things, Alex, I never thought I was going to have to say in my political career for $1,000, okay? But when I started doing this 19 years ago, I never thought I was going to end up on a big national platform. I was going to say, we really need to see people go to prison. But I do think the biggest thing that needs to happen is we need the pilot episode of Happy Days, Matt. Okay, and that's where someone decided to say yes to Fonzie. I'll join you in the men's room. I'll step into your office, and then after that happened once, brother. Every episode of Happy Days for the next 10 years, Fonzie asked at least one time, would you like to step into my office? What was the answer every time for the next 10 years? I'm good. We're good here. All right. An example needs to be made. All right. And let's be realistic. You know, as much as I love our buddy Jesse Kelly, we're not going to get a parade of orange jumpsuits as much as I could fetishize that, frankly, tonight. But that's probably not going to happen. It's not realistic. But we're going to need to make example. There needs to be an example made out of somebody or a few somebodies. Even subtle things like Tulsi Gabbard right away. Hey, yeah, we're going to fire. We fired all 100 of those degenerates on that chat room. All right. Well, the next thing to do, send Kash Patel and Dan Bongino in to search all their computers. Because I'm guessing somewhere buried there in the deleted files of their search history are some things we'd probably arrest people for, if you know what I'm saying, all right? There needs to be somewhere some form of example made. All right. We have to reestablish our social compact is broken. And in order to repair it, so we don't end up in a civil war, frankly, in order to repair it, we need to go back to mutually assured destruction. And so this year, there are over 300% more people at the National Religious Broadcasters Convention in Dallas this week than there were a year ago. Why? Because a lot of those people were probably hiding, thinking, I'm not showing myself because if we lose the election, we're going to prison. Now it's like, breathe the free air again, King Theodore. We can come out and be Christians again, right? Well, that fear should never exist in a free society, no matter how divisive the issues get, to restore that fear on the other end so that when they get power again, because eventually they will, and they will learn, all right, we can't go there because if we go there, this is how they're going to respond, right? An example does have to be made. Someone must be punished, and in public and severely, or at least a group of someone's must be punished for everything that's been done to the country for the last few years to make an example. Otherwise, something wicked this way comes. To me, that's the biggest thing that has to be accomplished.
You always say when something has to be done with COVID, there must be a reckoning that will be coming. I know you've talked about RFK Jr. a lot. You have said publicly that you think that he might be the most consequential cabinet pick of our lifetime. I look at what is laid out in front of him, the opportunity that is there. What do you see on the table for him?
The number one thing is conviction. I don't know anybody in American society today that's active at any level of politics that has sacrificed more for his convictions than Robert F. Kennedy has. And you're talking about someone who's been excommunicated from the closest thing America's ever had to a royal family. The amount of money he's lost, the prestige he's lost, the connections he's lost. These are things that if we're just average people, we could never understand what it means to be born into a family like that and then just tossed aside, frankly, for being right most of the time. Okay. And I think with that conviction comes resolve. And I think now he's ready. Bobby has said several times, he's prayed for years that God would give him the power to address the chronic health epidemic in America. He's 70 years old. He has been through, both sides of the aisle. He has seen how both sides operate, where the bodies are buried. He's taken every punch he can take. He is ready now, I think, to lead. And you got to wait until you've got the people in place at CDC and NIH who are really those are the agencies that actually carry out what he would say from above at HHS. All right. And so when you get Dr. Weldon in there, when you get Marty Makary in there, you get Jay Bhattacharya especially in there, now you'll have your range and your arms around the bureaucracy. But even just today, subtle things like, we're not going to do that exploration of the, now we're going to give you oral poison that doesn't work, all right, with the COVID genetic serums. All right, that's just one step of what could be done here in a massive paradigm shift of how we live our lives day to day. I mean, there are things I've learned from Bobby Kennedy I didn't know. I had no idea there's like 27 more ingredients in like a Ritz cracker or something here than there is in Canada. What's the benign and innocent explanation for that, right? Before I started losing weight about 10 years ago, my wife and I went to, and you grew up in Iowa like I did, Jill, Living History Farms, right? We went to their like farmhouse 1905 theme dinner, right? Okay. And they're bringing out all this food, man. And I'm like, holy crap, these people ate like pigs. Why were they not all morbidly obese? And they're like, well, everything's made from scratch.
We churned our own butter, by the way, at Living History Farms.
Everything's made with like 7 ingredients. Yeah. Oh, and these people were actually
in the middle of Iowa, sitting right here. I'm in the middle of Iowa on either side of me.
Well, these people were on their feet working all day, number one. Number two, they had like 7 ingredients and made their own food, right? Something is wrong. Matt, when you and I were growing up, we didn't know what a peanut butter allergy was. And in fact, we thought peanut butter was a food group, and we intravenously shot it into our veins.
Yes.
Okay? When our parents were like, here, take a jar of peanut butter and shut up. Now, everybody, what has happened here? It doesn't make any sense. We need answers to this. And that's a basic, fundamental way of how we live life. A lot of the issues we talk about are up here in the meta, that if you're just, driving a ready-mix truck today in Dallas, Texas, pouring somebody's garage, you know about them, maybe care, but they don't touch you. The stuff Bobby Kennedy's talking about touch everybody's lives, and they have greatly impacted the way we've lived our lives in the last generation, for sure. It's changed a lot.
It's interesting how, we are talking about reimagining the American way of life in the 21st century. That's really what's at stake in many ways. So what do you think when you think about Blaze and what we should be doing in media? It seems like the role to some degree has changed. You and many others have spent the last few years basically committing thought crimes by and trying to avoid the Stasi, and get message out there and tell people the truth about what's going on. Now we reach a different place. And today is a day when our own Chris Bedford is sitting there in that cabinet meeting asking Elon questions, and that's just the beginning. So what do you think the role of media is for shows like yours and the news?
I think the number one thing we have to do right now, more than anything, collectively on the right, Matt, on multiple fronts, is we have to seize this moment we have right now. Scott Rasmussen came out with a poll about 2 weeks ago that showed the Democrats were just way underwater on every issue of significance you could imagine. And you guys have been branded yourselves as the mandate here. I've never seen anything like this. I was 10 years old when Ronald Reagan won re-election in 1984. Maybe those polling numbers looked like that back then. I don't know, man. I was trying to watch the Detroit Tigers win the World Series. I wasn't paying attention. Okay, but in the time I've been doing this, I've never seen anything like this. An entire political party just largely discredited by the American people, and they're still unsure of where to go and what to do about it and where to go from here. We need to seize that momentum. And I think that support comes and that support comes in many ways. So, practice, the best, Jill, I know you come from sports like me. The best teams always tell you that practice was harder than the games. That with the way the coach challenged us in practice was harder than the games. One thing I love seeing right now, all right, is you saw Anna Paulina come after Pam Bondi and say, hey, you said you had the Epstein files on your desk. I'm running the subcommittee on this. Where are the files? You've got MAGA influencers, actually, that people I personally know and am friends with, that are now going after Anna Paulina, saying, we don't need to do field trips to the book depository on the just release the. That's good. That is good, and that is healthy, all right? Because that's an example of, if you want to have a great team, if you want this to be a movement and not a moment, all right, how we challenge and improve and support one another should be harder than when we actually step onto the set of MSNBC, should that still exist in the next 10 minutes, and get on a panel against those guys. That should be relief. Oh, this is the simple part, all right? That is actually healthy, rather than let's just all just get real comfortable. We won. Let's all just rake in the clicks and the money and enjoy ourselves and go back to being completely complacent, not knowing what a school board meeting is. This is actually the moment, I think, on multiple fronts, we need to seize the advantage.
We might have more than just a strongly worded letter for once in our lives.
Yes.